There is a concept in physiology that explains why some people sleep through the entire night and still wake up tired. That concept is called allostatic load. Allostatic load is the biological cost of adaptation. It is the price the body pays to maintain stability under constant effort. It does not matter whether the effort was physical, mental, emotional, or silent. The organism responds, adapts, compensates, and keeps functioning. But every adaptation consumes energy. And when this process happens repeatedly, energy does not disappear all at once. It is drained little by little, in a silent way, progressively, almost invisibly. This accumulated wear creates a curious sensation. The person sleeps, but does not recover, rests, but does not restore, wakes up, but does not feel renewed. That sensation is not laziness, it is not weakness, it is not lack of discipline, it is a physiological signal, a signal that the system is still working, even during sleep. There is another important detail here. The body has two types of energy: immediate energy and recovery energy. Immediate energy allows action, making decisions, completing tasks, solving problems. Recovery energy allows restoration, repairing tissues, balancing hormones, regulating emotions, reorganizing the nervous system. When immediate energy is used constantly, without enough time for recovery, the organism enters conservation mode, a biological conservation mode. In this mode, the body reduces efficiency, reduces speed, reduces mental clarity, reduces motivation, not because it is failing, but because it is protecting. This mechanism is similar to what happens with a phone battery. When the charge becomes low, the system reduces consumption, diminishes brightness, limits performance, disables non-essential functions. The body does the same. It preserves energy, it protects resources, it slows down. This state creates a very common sensation: constant fatigue, even after sleeping. There is also a phenomenon called non-restorative sleep. Non-restorative sleep occurs when a person sleeps, but the system does not enter deep recovery. The body remains in an intermediate state, neither fully active nor fully restoring. This state can be caused by several factors: residual vigilance, low-grade inflammation, prolonged stress, circadian misalignment, emotional overload. But the most important factor is often invisible: the continuation of effort. There is a detail that few people notice. The body does not recover only during sleep. It recovers when it feels safe. Physiological safety, emotional safety, environmental safety. Without that sense of safety, the system remains alert, even during the night. This functioning explains why some people wake up tired, even after sleeping 8 hours. Time passed, but recovery did not happen. Another important concept appears here: invisible fatigue. Invisible fatigue is wear that does not show up immediately. It is not pain. It is not disease. It is not collapse. It is a gradual reduction in energy, a gradual reduction in motivation, a gradual reduction in clarity. This type of fatigue is common in responsible people, in dedicated people, in people who maintain continuous effort. Because the system keeps functioning, even when it needs to rest. There is also a mechanism called adaptive wear. Adaptive wear happens when the organism needs to adjust repeatedly. Changes, pressures, expectations, responsibilities. Every adjustment consumes energy, and the more adjustments are required, the greater the biological cost. This cost does not appear immediately, but it accumulates over time. Another fundamental concept emerges at this point: perceived energy. Perceived energy is the subjective sensation of vitality. That sensation does not always correspond to real energy. A person may have physiological energy, yet feel tired, or may feel alert, even while being exhausted. This mismatch occurs when the nervous system remains under prolonged effort. The body keeps functioning, but the perception of energy decreases. Another important detail involves the brain. The brain does not measure only sleep. It measures safety. It measures stability. It measures predictability. When those elements are present, the system relaxes. When they are absent, the system remains alert, even during rest. Another important concept appears here: physiological reserve. Physiological reserve is the organism's capacity to respond to effort. The greater the reserve, the greater the resilience, the greater the recovery, the greater the stability. When that reserve decreases, fatigue increases, even without visible effort. This phenomenon explains why some people feel exhausted, even on calm days. The body is not reacting to the present, it is reacting to history. Another relevant detail appears at this point. The body does not forget effort. It records, it memorizes, it adapts. That physiological memory influences energy, influences mood, influences sleep, influences recovery. There is also a concept called recovery debt. Recovery debt occurs when the organism has not had enough time to restore energy. Each day of effort without recovery increases that debt, and the greater the debt, the greater the fatigue, even after sleeping. This understanding completely changes the interpretation of tiredness. Fatigue does not mean lack of strength. Fatigue may mean accumulated effort. Another essential aspect emerges here. The brain prioritizes survival. It protects energy. It prevents collapse. It reduces performance when necessary. This behavior is not weakness, it is protection. This mechanism creates a common experience. The person sleeps, but wakes up tired, not because sleep failed, but because the system is still in effort. Another important detail appears here. The body needs real pause, not only time, but recovery. True recovery involves reducing vigilance, hormonal balance, emotional regulation, neural reorganization. Without these processes, sleep happens, but recovery is not completed. There is still a point that completely transforms this understanding. Fatigue is not only physical, it can be neurological, emotional, metabolic, cognitive. This multidimensional fatigue requires multidimensional recovery. There is a quiet detail in the way the body works that few people notice. The organism does not change state immediately. It slows down gradually. This process is called physiological inertia. Physiological inertia is the time the body needs to move from a state of effort into a state of recovery. It is not a conscious decision. It is not a choice. It is a biological adjustment. When the day ends, the body does not shut down instantly. The system continues reducing activity, reducing tension, reducing vigilance. This process can take minutes, it can take hours, and in some cases, it can take days, especially when the organism has gone through prolonged periods of demand. Notice that there is a factor that directly influences this transition: the amount of energy available inside the cells. That energy is produced by mitochondria. Mitochondria are microscopic structures responsible for generating energy for the body. When they function efficiently, the organism recovers faster. When they become overloaded, recovery becomes slower. This phenomenon is known as functional mitochondrial fatigue. It does not mean disease. It does not mean failure. It means wear. Energetic wear, metabolic wear, adaptive wear. This type of fatigue often appears in people who maintain constant effort for long periods, people who work intensely, who carry continuous responsibility, who face frequent pressure, or who live in a prolonged state of attention. In these situations, the body keeps functioning, but with reduced efficiency. A relevant aspect emerges when we observe the behavior of the brain. The brain consumes a remarkable amount of energy, even at rest, even during sleep, even in silence. It uses energy to maintain basic functions, regulate temperature, control heart rhythm, organize information, process experiences. This constant demand creates something known as the metabolic cost of vigilance. The higher the level of vigilance, the greater the energy consumption, and the greater the energy consumption, the slower recovery becomes. Notice how this explains a common experience. A person did not perform intense physical activity, yet feels deeply tired, because the effort was internal, mental, emotional, cognitive. Another element deserves attention when we look at patterns of rest. Not all rest is continuous. Not all rest is deep. Not all rest is sufficient. There are situations in which recovery happens in fragments. This phenomenon is known as fragmented recovery. The person sleeps, but briefly wakes up several times, changes position, adjusts breathing, responds to internal signals. These small awakenings may last only seconds and often go unnoticed, yet each interruption reduces the depth of rest, and when depth decreases, recovery becomes incomplete. Another point worth observing involves the way neural energy is managed. The brain does not operate with unlimited energy. It allocates resources. It distributes energy. It prioritizes functions. When demand remains high for extended periods, the system slows down. This adjustment is called neuroenergetic deceleration. It is not collapse. It is strategy, a way to preserve resources, a way to prevent exhaustion. This mechanism creates a particular sensation. The person continues functioning, but with less clarity, less focus, less motivation, less vitality. That sensation is often interpreted as laziness, but in reality, it is protection, biological protection. Another concept helps expand this understanding: neural restoration deficit. This deficit occurs when the brain has not had enough time to reorganize connections. During rest, the system needs to integrate memories, regulate emotions, repair cells, balance neurotransmitters. When that process is interrupted repeatedly, recovery does not complete, and fatigue remains, even after sleep. Notice how this completely changes the interpretation of tiredness. The problem is not only sleeping, the problem is restoring. An additional detail appears when we observe the behavior of the nervous system. The organism has an internal preservation mechanism. This mechanism activates when energy begins to decline. It reduces performance, reduces speed, reduces intensity. This response is called the biological preservation system. Its purpose is simple: to prevent collapse, to prevent overload, to prevent failure. This mechanism explains why some people feel tired. Even without an obvious reason, the body is trying to conserve energy. Another factor worth considering involves the internal rhythm of recovery. The organism does not restore energy in a continuous line. It restores in cycles. These cycles depend on stability, depend on predictability, depend on safety. When those elements are present, recovery happens naturally. When they are absent, recovery slows down and fatigue persists. There is yet another detail that changes this understanding. The brain does not seek rest alone. It seeks efficiency, energetic efficiency, metabolic efficiency, neural efficiency. When efficiency declines, effort increases, and when effort increases, fatigue appears, even without intense activity. Another important aspect emerges when we examine the relationship between attention and energy. Attention consumes energy. Decision-making consumes energy. Problem-solving consumes energy. Emotional regulation consumes energy. Maintaining focus consumes energy. Each of these activities requires resources, and those resources need to be replenished. When they are not replenished properly, the organism enters a conservation state. This state reduces performance, reduces clarity, reduces motivation, not because of weakness, but because of protection. A detail that deserves emphasis involves the perception of fatigue. The brain does not measure effort alone. It measures risk. It measures demand. It measures reserve. When it detects that reserve is declining, it sends signals to slow down, signals to reduce intensity, signals to pause. These signals are interpreted as fatigue, but at their core, they are signals of preservation. This interpretation changes the entire way we understand tiredness. Fatigue is not merely a problem. It is a message, a biological message, a protective message, an adaptive message. And the sooner this message is understood, the easier it becomes to restore balance, Notice how persistent fatigue rarely depends on a single cause. In most cases, it emerges from the accumulation of small strains, small adjustments, small adaptations. Each one may seem insignificant, but together, over time, they create a real impact, an impact the body feels, even when the mind does not notice. A concept that clarifies this dynamic is sleep efficiency. Sleep efficiency does not simply mean sleeping many hours. It refers to how much of the time in bed is truly used for deep recovery. A person may spend 8 hours lying down, but only part of that time may have been restorative. The rest may have been light, fragmented, superficial. This detail explains why sleep duration alone does not guarantee energy. Another element worth considering involves what is known as baseline cognitive load. Baseline cognitive load is the minimum level of mental activity that remains active even at rest. Even when we are not solving problems, even when we are not working, the brain continues processing, continues organizing, continues monitoring. That silent work requires energy, and the greater the load accumulated during the day, the greater the effort required to reorganize the system at night. A relevant aspect appears when we observe autonomic regulation. The autonomic nervous system controls automatic functions: breathing, heart rhythm, digestion, sleep. When this system needs to adjust constantly, it becomes worn. This wear does not appear dramatically, it appears gradually. A little less energy, a little less motivation, a little less clarity. This process can be described as autonomic regulation fatigue. It is not disease, it is prolonged effort. There is also an important detail involving tolerance to effort. The organism has a limit of adaptation. When that limit is exceeded repeatedly, tolerance decreases. This means that simple activities begin to require more energy. Routine situations begin to feel exhausting. Small decisions begin to feel heavy. This phenomenon is known as reduced tolerance to effort. It does not indicate weakness. It indicates accumulated overload. Another concept that deepens this understanding is adaptive energy conservation. The body is intelligent. It adjusts consumption. It regulates intensity. It distributes resources. When it detects that available energy is declining, it reduces performance. This adjustment is automatic, and it has a protective function to preserve energy for essential functions. This mechanism explains why fatigue can appear before complete exhaustion. It is an early warning signal, a signal that the system needs to slow down. Another element worth considering involves the time required for recovery. That time is known as recovery latency. Recovery latency is the interval between the end of effort and the beginning of restoration. In people who carry high levels of stress or responsibility, this latency tends to be longer. The system takes more time to slow down, more time to relax, more time to recover. This delay creates the sensation of prolonged fatigue. A factor that deserves attention involves the functional reserve of the nervous system. This reserve represents the capacity to respond to challenges. The greater the reserve, the greater the resilience, the greater the recovery, the greater the stability. When that reserve declines, the organism must exert more effort to maintain the same performance. That additional effort consumes energy, and fatigue becomes more frequent. Notice how another important dynamic appears when we observe the body's alert system. This system was designed to protect. It monitors threats. It identifies risks. It prepares responses. But when it remains active for long periods, it becomes worn. This wear can be described as the silent fatigue of the alert system. It is not visible, it is not immediate, but it is real. Another relevant detail involves what is known as maintenance fatigue. Maintenance fatigue occurs when the organism spends energy simply to sustain basic functioning, not to grow, not to evolve, not to improve, only to maintain. This type of fatigue is common in people who live in a state of continuous adaptation. The body keeps functioning, but without margin for deep recovery. A meaningful insight emerges when we examine the relationship between emotion and energy. Emotions require processing: joy, concern, responsibility, expectation. Every emotion activates the nervous system. Every emotion consumes energy. When emotions accumulate, the organism needs to reorganize that content. Much of this work happens during rest, but when emotional load is high, internal work continues longer and recovery takes more time. Another important factor involves predictability. The brain functions better when it can anticipate, when it can recognize patterns, when it can predict what comes next. Predictable environments reduce effort. Unstable environments increase vigilance, and vigilance consumes energy. There is also an important detail involving time for adaptation. The body needs time to reorganize systems, time to recalibrate responses, time to restore balance. Without that time, the organism remains in effort, even during rest. This understanding completely changes the interpretation of fatigue. Fatigue is not only lack of sleep. It may be accumulated effort. It may be incomplete recovery. It may be continuous adaptation. It may be energy being preserved. And when this reality becomes clear, fatigue stops being a mystery. It becomes a message, a clear message, a biological message, a message that signals the need for true recovery. Notice that there is an essential difference between resting and recovering. Resting means stopping. Recovering means restoring. That distinction changes everything, because many people are able to stop, but few are able to restore. The body may remain still for hours and still continue internal effort. That effort is not visible. It does not make noise. It does not draw attention, but it consumes energy. The organism operates with two systems at the same time. One system allows action. Another system allows regeneration. The first is fast. The second is slow. The first responds to the present. The second responds to history. When the action system is used repeatedly, without enough time for regeneration, a state called chronic allostatic fatigue emerges. This state represents the accumulated wear of the organism over time. It is not a sudden failure. It is a gradual process, silent, progressive. It is like an elastic band that has been stretched many times. It still works, but it loses elasticity. Consider something many people have never heard before: a mismatch between sleep and recovery. This happens when the body sleeps, but the biological system has not yet entered deep restoration. Sleep occurred, but recovery did not begin. This can happen when the brain remains monitoring, when the system remains alert, when the mind continues organizing experiences. This pattern is common in people who carry high responsibility, in people who manage many demands, in people who live in continuous adaptation. There is another detail that transforms this understanding. The brain has an internal reward system. This system regulates motivation, regulates interest, regulates willingness. When the organism experiences prolonged effort, this system can become less responsive, not because the person lost interest in life, but because the system is preserving energy. This phenomenon can be described as reward system fatigue. It creates a very specific sensation. Everything seems to require more effort. Simple tasks feel heavy. Activities that once felt enjoyable feel draining. This shift is not emotional, it is energetic. In reality, the body is trying to protect resources. Now consider something even deeper. Not all energy is the same. There is adaptive energy, and there is regenerative energy. Adaptive energy allows continuation, allows responsibility, allows functioning. Regenerative energy allows restoration, allows repair, allows rebuilding. When adaptive energy is used continuously, regenerative energy declines. This imbalance creates a common experience. The person keeps going, but cannot renew. There is also a concept that helps explain this pattern: fatigue from overfunctioning. This type of fatigue appears when the organism remains active for long periods. Even without noticing, the person did not stop, did not slow down, did not recover, only continued. This pattern is common in resilient people, responsible people, committed people, because they keep functioning even when the body needs pause. Notice how this explains a frequent experience. The person wakes up tired, spends the day tired, and goes to sleep tired, not because they failed, but because the system is still in effort. There is also a factor known as delayed biological recovery. This occurs when the organism takes longer to begin the restoration process. Effort ended, but the system is still slowing down, still reorganizing, still adjusting. That delay creates the sensation of persistent fatigue. Another important insight appears when we consider the regenerative capacity of the body. The organism has a natural ability to recover, but that ability depends on conditions. It depends on stability. It depends on predictability. It depends on safety. Without those conditions, regeneration becomes slower and fatigue remains. Notice something many people never considered. Constant fatigue does not always mean weakness. Very often, it means continuous effort, invisible effort, silent effort, accumulated effort. This pattern can be described as silent exhaustion of the nervous system. It is not dramatic. It is not obvious, but it is profound. And the longer this state continues, the harder it becomes to restore energy. Another relevant detail appears when we observe the body over time. The organism learns. It learns rhythms. It learns patterns. It learns responses. If the body learns to function under constant effort, it continues functioning that way, even when circumstances change. This learning creates a state of continuous readiness, a state in which the system remains prepared, even without threat. This readiness consumes energy, and energy that is consumed must be restored. When it is not restored properly, fatigue appears. Now consider what this means in practice. Sleeping is not enough. Stopping is not enough. Reducing activity is not enough. What the body needs is real recovery. Recovery that involves reduction of vigilance, physiological balance, energetic restoration, neural integration. This process requires time, biological time, physiological time, real time. And when that time does not happen, fatigue remains. Notice how this changes the interpretation of tiredness. You are not lazy. You are not unmotivated. You are not failing. Your system is trying to protect energy, trying to preserve resources, trying to maintain function. This understanding transforms the way you see your own body. Fatigue stops being an enemy and becomes a signal of adaptation, a signal of protection, a signal of need for recovery. Consider the main insights that emerge throughout this video. You may have realized that sleep does not guarantee recovery, that the organism can remain in effort even during sleep, that fatigue can result from prolonged adaptation, that energy needs to be restored, not only preserved, that the body functions in cycles, that recovery depends on safety, that fatigue can be a protective response, that the nervous system seeks stability, that energy needs to be regenerated, and that true rest depends on balance. Balance between effort and recovery, between action and pause, between activity and regeneration. If at any moment during this video an idea captured your attention, if a concept helped you understand something that once felt confusing, or if an explanation allowed you to see your own fatigue differently, it may be worth recording that realization. It could be a simple sentence, a new understanding, an unexpected insight, or that quiet moment when something finally made sense. Sharing that perception is more than participation. It strengthens awareness. It transforms knowledge into clarity. And very often, when one person describes what they discovered, another person recognizes their own experience. There is a natural question that follows all of this. Why, even when everything is calm, does the mind remain active? Why do thoughts keep appearing, even when there is no immediate problem? Why does silence fail to bring rest? That is exactly the question we will explore in the next video. Because in many cases, fatigue does not come from effort. It comes from a mind that cannot stop.